We are making a very significant change to the chemical constituency of the atmosphere and the oceans.
What we do now and in the next few years will profoundly affect the next few thousand years.
You only speak of green, eternal economic growth because you are too scared of being unpopular.
The world's people have spoken. Their message is clear. Time is running out.
Hello everyone, my name is Bima and I'm here is corporate executive from Pertamina. And thank you everyone for joining this meeting. As Indonesian biggest state-owned energy company, Pertamina recognized that climate change is one of the greatest challenges facing our country and the world. Rising temperature, extreme weather, even an ecosystem degradation require collective action from all stakeholders. To support Indonesia energy transition, Pertamina has invested in low-carbon initiatives, including geothermal development through Pertamina Geothermal Energy and Biodiesel. Programs such as B35 and B40, there's initiatives are aware that concerns have emerged regarding the sustainability of palm oil feedstock used in biodiesel production. Therefore, Pertamina is committed to balancing energy security, economic growth, and environmental sustainability. We hope today's discussion will help us to identify practical solutions that benefit both people and the planet. Thank you.
Thank you, Bima. My name is Aurelia Sanjaya. I am the Ministry of Energy and Mineral Resources. I do agree that climate change is a global challenge that requires cooperation among governments, business, scientists, and civil society. Indonesia is committed to implementing the Paris Agreement and achieving net zero emissions by 2060. In line with these commitments, the government has introduced policies promoting renewable energy development and carbon emissions reduction. The biodiesel blending program, including B35 and B40, is part of our strategy to reduce dependence on imported diesel fuel and strengthen national energy security. At the same time, we are expanding investment in geothermal, solar, and hydropower projects. Nevertheless, we understand concerns regarding land use change and peatland degradation associated with oil palm expansions. Therefore, the government seeks a balanced approach that protects the environment while ensuring economic growth and the welfare of millions of smallholder farmers. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Aurel and Mr. Bima. And my name is Christina, and I am an NGO representative from WALHI Indonesia. Well, actually, WALHI Indonesia appreciates the government's effort to reduce carbon emissions and accelerate the energy transition. However, climate solutions should not create new environmental problems, because for decades, the expansion of oil palm plantations has contributed to deforestation, peatland degradation, biodiversity loss, and land conflicts affecting local communities and indigenous peoples in Sumatra, Kalimantan, and Papua. And actually, according to the data, Riau and Central Kalimantan are among Indonesia's largest palm oil producing regions, and Riau alone produces approximately 9.5 million tons of crude palm oil annually, while Central Kalimantan contributes around 76 million tons, making both provinces major suppliers for Indonesia's biodiesel industry. However, increasing demand for palm oil has also encouraged plantation expansion and land use change. Over the past 2 decades, Oil palm expansion has been responsible for nearly 1/3 of Indonesia's primary forest loss, equivalent to around 3 million hectares. Many of these losses have occurred in carbon-rich peatlands and forest ecosystems that serve as important carbon sinks. And climate mitigation should not come at the expense of forests and communities. Therefore, while he believes that Indonesia's energy transition must prioritize sustainability, transparency, and environmental justice.
Thank you, Mr. Bima, Miss Christina, and Miss Aurel. My name is Cornelius. From a scientific perspective, biodiesel can reduce life cycle carbon emissions compared to conventional diesel fuel. However, these benefits depend heavily on how the feedstocks are produced. If increased demand for palm oil leads to deforestation and peatland conversion, the carbon emissions released from land use change may outweigh the carbon savings achieved by biodiesel. Fortunately, Indonesia possesses tremendous renewable energy potential. In addition to biofuels, Indonesia has abundant geothermal resource, solar energy potential, and opportunities to develop second-generation biofuels derived from agricultural waste and used cooking oil. They report the diversification and sustainable feedstock management are essential for achieving long-term decarbonization.
While he appreciates the government's commitment to reducing emissions, we remain concerned that the increasing biodiesel demand may encourage further expansion of oil palm plantations into forests and peatlands, particularly in Sumatra, Kalimantan, and Papua. For example, as I mentioned before, Riau produced around 9.5 million tons of crude palm oil annually, and Central Kalimantan contributes approximately 7.6 million tons, making them key suppliers for Indonesia's palm oil or biodiesel industry. However, increased demand has also accelerated land use change in the last 2 decades because oil palm expansion has contributed to nearly 1/3 of Indonesia's primary forest loss, or approximately 3 million hectares. And communities in these regions have already experienced environmental degradation and land conflicts. Therefore, I would like to ask Pertamina, how can the company ensure that its biofuel supply chain does not contribute to the deforestation?
Okay, thank you, Hani. Pertamina understand this concern. Our intention is not to encourage uncontrolled expansion of plantation. Instead, we are working with certified supplier and improving traceability system to ensure that feedstock are obtained from sustainable source. At the same time, we must recognize that biodiesel play a crucial role in the strengthening Indonesian energy security and reducing dependence on imported fuel. Thank you.
Okay, and we appreciate those efforts. However, certification alone may not be enough if monitoring mechanisms are weak. Because while he encouraged Pertamina and the government to adopt a stronger zero deforestation commitment and involve local communities in monitoring the supply chain, climate solutions should not sacrifice forests and indigenous rights.
Okay, thank you, Ms. Hani, and thank you, Mr. Bima. The government acknowledged these concerns. Indonesia's biodiesel program aims not only to reduce emissions, but also to support millions of smallholder farmers and maintain energy resilience. Therefore, livelihoods and economic stability. Nevertheless, we are committed to strengthening regulations, protecting peatlands, and promoting sustainable palm oil certifications through ISPO.
Thank you, Mrs. Aurel, Miss Christina, and Mr. Bima. I believe both perspectives are valid. Scientific studies indicate that biodiesel can contribute emission reduction, but sustainability must be ensured. Rather than expanding plantations, Indonesia should focus on increasing productivity on existing land. At the same time, diversification is important. Geothermal energy offers stable low carbon electricity, while second generation biofuels derived from used cooking oil and agricultural waste can reduce dependence on additional palm oil production.
I agree with diversification because while he supports the transition toward cleaner energy, but we would like to see greater investment in geothermal and solar energy instead of relying heavily on palm oil, because transparency and independent monitoring should also become priorities.
Actually, Pertamina share the same objective. Beside biofuel program, Pertamina has expanded geothermal investment through Pertamina Geothermal Energy, and it's currently exploring sustainable aviation fuel and advanced biofuel based on used cooking oil. However, their technology requires substantial investment and supportive government and policy.
Okay, the government is prepared to support these efforts. We are developing incentives for renewable energy investments, encouraging green financing, and facilitating research collaborations with institutions such as BRIN. Indonesia's energy transition should not rely on a single solution, but rather on a diversified energy mix.
I will also like to emphasize that Indonesia possesses approximately 40% of the world's geothermal resource. Compared to fossil fuels, geothermal energy produces significantly lower carbon emissions and provides reliable baseload electricity. So in the long term, geothermal and solar energy should become important pillars of Indonesia decarbonization strategy.
Well, that is encouraging the because that is such a good way to transition into a green energy. But nevertheless, while he believes transparency remains essential, we hope Pertamina will publicly disclose the origin of its feedstocks and ensure that suppliers are not associated with deforestation or conflicts with indigenous communities.
We understand those expectations. Pertamina is willing to improve transparency, strengthen sustainability, sourcing practice, and work with NGO and experts to ensure accountability. We believe collaboration is the key to achieving a just, sustainable energy transition.
All right. It appears that all parties have agreed that climate mitigation, energy security, and environmental protection should complement one another rather than compete with each other. So, I propose that we establish a collaborative framework involving the government, Pertamina, WELCI, and RIN to monitor sustainability and accelerate investment in renewable energy. Sorry.
While he supports this proposal, provided that local communities and indigenous peoples are included in monitoring mechanism and that zero deforestation principles are respected.
And from a scientific perspective, this collaborative approach is the most effective way to ensure that Indonesia's climate policies are both environmentally sustainable and economically feasible.
Okay, from Pertamina, Pertamina fully support this initiative.
Okay, thank you for this productive discussion, Ms. Christina, Mr. Bima, and Mr. Cornelius. Today we have reached several important agreements. First, Indonesia's biodiesel program will continue while ensuring that no additional deforestation or peatland conversion occurs. Second, all stakeholders agreed to strengthen sustainable palm oil certification to improve supply chain traceability and increase transparency. Third, Pertamina will continue expanding investments in geothermal energy, solar energy, and second-generation biofuels derived from waste materials and used cooking oil. Fourth, the government will provide regulatory support, green financing, and incentives to accelerate Indonesia's energy transition. Fifth, WALHI, BRIN, local communities, and other stakeholders will participate in independent monitoring to ensure environmental protection and social inclusiveness. Finally, we reaffirm our collective commitment to support Indonesia's obligations under the Paris Agreement and achieving net zero emissions by 2060. Thank you everyone for your participation. Together, we can build a greener and more sustainable future for Indonesia.